The law of timing. So the law of timing. And the law of timing says when to lead is as important as what to do and where to go. So the tagline statement is when to lead is as important as what to do and where to go. Okay. There's a couple of pieces to this that we'll discuss. The first one is to recognize this is probably one of the hardest leadership laws because there's actually a lot of intuition that goes into it. It's tricky. I would say most of the laws that are taught by John can absolutely be learned. And I'm not saying this can't generally be worked on, but some are maybe giftings, things of that nature that people have more of versus less of, is just the like when to time things out. And so intuition this is an area honestly that there's a gifting in, just, and I'm not saying I have it, by the way. I'm just saying that it is something that kind of is gifting slash as you get more and more wisdom around you, it can get better. Yeah, essentially, because you start to kind of meet things out and run it through channels. I see this happen on some of the boards that I'm on, where the ones that are really, really do good is they spend a lot of time like batting things around and running it through a filter, and not everything makes it out, which is okay. But when they do, the decision that most people don't see, they just see the final decision. They just don't see how much went into it to choose whether that was a good decision. Not that they're 100% all right or end exempt, but it's a higher probability that the timing of it is good. It's a tricky thing to figure out. So I just want to make that statement up front. There's kind of this ability to see like the bigger picture of things, just from a visionary level, like to kind of go, what's coming down the pike, what's happening, taking all the pieces in. That's a factor, or a piece of it is being able to see like what's going on. I definitely can lean on that side, right? I kind of sort of tend to look above the clouds, what's happening, out there. And there's also like an emotional strength that can get developed within the law of timing as well, that as you mature emotionally, okay, there's a more willingness to wait. So just something to be cognizant of, like as you mature emotionally. I've even seen this in my own life where I'm like, okay, I'm willing to be a little bit more patient and wait this out. And there's still a long ways to go, but it is an area that's part of the timing thing of like a little bit of restraint. Feel like, okay, maybe we can wait on this, and things of that magnitude. So those are just some variables, but want to hear from you guys on that. If have any comments or thoughts?
Yeah, I think that there is something to be said about timing, because our slightest timing shift can impact a lot.
Sure.
Which can come with a lot of good or bad.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think strategically timing is tough in general, but if you have good emotional intelligence, if you understand like if you're being proactive in your process too, you'll be able to get a good gauge on it, and also leaning on experts in the industry or whatever you're leaning on. I think timing not only is good for business, but also personally too.
Yeah, for sure.
Because how many personal relationships are impacted by timing?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think it's it's one of those like life rules rather than just work rules, which is really interesting.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, when you first mentioned this law, the thing that came to mind was more of a knowing when to take a step back and let somebody figure it out and not lead them that way. But this is more about knowing when to make, when to make the decision to move the ship, or it's not. Yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, yeah, I could see where that um the like the foresight and whatnot is like absolutely critical in this. I think that I think that's the one that's probably the most important, because if you don't have the foresight of what's coming and where to be going, you're going to miss it every time. The timing, the holding back, the going too early you might arrive a little early, but that's not really the end of the world. You could probably still address or deal with that. That's that foresight is like key and critical here, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even like, on the whole disruption thing around like the centralization concept, that is going to take a lot of like, because I've been spending time like looking, going, okay, I see these things moving down the pike of like frustrations, but now you have to start to go, what are all the factors like politically that could influence this, positive or negative? What are the factors in the banking community that, you know what I mean? Like, so you're having to kind of move forward, but then also gather information to go, is that the right time? And then there is a sense of intuition where you start to feel like, okay, this seems to be moving in a direction, getting a lot of feedback, gathering information, asking questions, things like that. So just being real curious through it. So those are just some things around the law of timing. It's tricky, but and there's 4 times, okay, this is really important. There are 4 times that people are ready to change. Okay, this is a good one to remember.
4 types.
4 times.
Oh, 4 times.
Yeah, 4 times when people are ready to change. So leaders watch for this so they can have proper timing. So like, and this is what I'm talking about with the whole thing, like when you feel the frustration of the industry or starting to feel more and more frustration, these are some good like lick tests to make it so that your odds are better of making the right timing on things. So here's what they are. So people hurt enough that they have to. Okay, so think about that in your own life. Like, it's hurt enough that you have to. Okay. They see enough that they're inspired to. So you see enough and you're like, I want to change, right?
Like inspire a shared vision.
Correct. Exactly. They learn enough that they want to. Okay, so you gather enough information, you're like, I want to do that, because now you're educated. And then they receive enough that they're able to. Okay, so there's some level of like abundance that they are able to kind of go through. So again, they hurt enough, so pain, right, gets enough that you're like, I have to. They see enough and they're inspired to. They're like, that makes me want to go. They learn enough, get enough information that they want to, and then they receive enough that they are able to. Okay, there's an ability to move at that point. So 4 things, or timing, that as a leader you can have in your toolbox to just kind of go, wonder where this falls on the spectrum of those things. Okay. Now, with that in mind, John goes through and says, so this is a good another box to kind of think through when you're trying to figure things out, right? So wrong action at the wrong time equals disaster. Okay. So this was what I experienced back in 08, 09, right? I took the wrong action at the wrong time. It was disastrous, because I was ignorant I bought my partner out, put a bunch of cash out, had debt. So it was wrong action, wrong time, disastrous, right? Wrong action at the right time is a mistake. Okay, so you could have the right time, you just took the wrong action.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, oh, great timing, wrong action. Okay. And that's a mistake. Right actions, you're like, oh, this is the good action, wrong time is resistance. Okay, so like if I try to have a conversation with my kiddo about something important at the wrong time, so it might be the right thing, like we need to have this discussion,
Sure.
but I choose the wrong time, right? When she might not be in the right, or he might not be in the, like, that's like, okay. We've all had that happen before. Like, it's like, that didn't go over very well. Right action at the right time, success, right? So we're trying to obviously get to quadrant 4, but it's good for you to kind of step back and go, I always say, like, when you're having conversations, you kind of use timing, temperament, and tactic. Is this the right time? What's my temperament? What's the tactic? Right? All those 3 things kind of help you decide, like, okay, how am I going to handle this? And is this the right time? Is this the right temperament? Is this the right tactic? Right.
Yeah.
So, thoughts about those 2 different things, timing and the quadrants?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like the wrong action at the right time, you kind of get away with it.
Yeah.
But then the right action at the wrong time, you get the resistance, which means is that external resistance or environmental? Okay, got it.
Yeah.
But then I think that the biggest one is the wrong action at the wrong time, where things just go haywire.
Yeah.
And then it's like, how are you going to come back? And that could be a setback for many years.
Correct. Yeah. 100%. Yes.
I think it's interesting that those first 4 like literally follow the model away, shared vision, challenge the process, because like hurt enough that they have to change. Like you don't, like if you don't know there's something outside of where you're at, like if you don't know there's a better process, you're not gonna feel pain from it. You're just gonna, like, this is the process. If you see somebody else doing it smoother, somebody models the way, you're gonna say, okay, I need to change like that. Seeing enough, obviously a shared vision, learning enough that they want to, that's really challenging the process. And then the last 2, enabling others to act and encouraging the heart, or down to they receive enough that they are able to.
Yeah.
I just thought that was, as you were going through, it's like, wow, it's wild how it just mirrors that.
Yeah. Good call. Great perspective. Yeah, it's good perspective to kind of see how there's intertwining on these principles. That's why I call it law, because it just bleeds into the rest of leadership stuff.
Yeah.
That you have. So good insight.
Yeah.
His final comment, which is I think this is a great quote. He says, people are willing to follow you as long as you're willing to show humanness. And as long as you are willing to say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just, it's the, the understanding that when you're trying to figure things out, and when you're trying to go in a direction, he's basically saying you're probably going to fail.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it's not like if you're going to fail, or if you're not going to get the timing right or whatever, you will not get it right.
Yeah.
You will sometimes, you won't sometimes. And it's a matter of just saying, like, yeah, it's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's okay. And you just kind of take that and learn from it. This just goes back to the, innovation out of frustration and owning it, and just kind of recognizing, like, we thought, tried, didn't work out. So what are you going to do? So people will embrace that, right? They'll just go like, yeah, okay, I can accept that if they're reasonable, right? But they don't really accept when someone just like completely just denies, digs their heels in, won't admit reality. Do you know what I'm saying? Let's go, okay. Can't do anything with this. Like, you won't change.
I'm stuck.
Yeah, you're stuck. So that's the law of timing.
Yeah.
which I think is
I like that one.
a great
a good
thing
one.